Welcome to the Men Unplugged show. Get ready to plug in and recharge your life, family, and career while igniting your faith in Christ. Now, here's your host and champion of helping men live with passion and purpose, Jeff Jerina.
Hey, how's it going? Jeff Jerina here, and welcome to episode 6 of Men Unplugged, where I chat with inspiring Christian leaders every single day of the week. With that said, I want to encourage you to join the Men Unplugged community for free. And when you do that, I'll send you a free PDF copy of my book, 10 Steps to Power and Purpose. I'll be talking more about that in the middle portion of this podcast episode, along with the details on how you can win 4 tickets to MercyMe's premiere movie event. Joining me on today's show is a man who knows how to win with integrity. No matter the playing field, whether it's as a starting quarterback leading his team to consecutive Orange Bowl victories, in the political arena in Washington, or in Dallas as chief executive of a corporate and government affairs consulting firm, my guest knows how to dig deep. Please welcome former U.S. House of Representative and author of Dig Deep, J.C. Watts Jr. Mr. Watts, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thank you. I'm ready to get started, and hopefully we can be an encouragement to those who are listening and trying to deal with adversity. So thanks for having me on.
Well, first of all, JC, it's a real honor to have you on the show. I tell you what, just reading your book and some of the stuff that you've gone through and how you've been able to dig deep and work with integrity is really amazing to me. So first off, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, I think. It's still early, but no, I am doing well. And Jeff, any day that I get up and I'm breathing, I am ahead of the game. And I just, it has been a little bit colder in Oklahoma as I've traveled around the country, and even in Texas, it's been a little. I get down to San Antonio occasionally because I'm in the John Deere business down there, but it's even been cold there, and they've even seen some white snowflakes this winter season. So I'm doing well, and I'm grateful every day that I get up that God's given me another day to serve Him.
Well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned San Antonio. My parents actually just got back from San Antonio. My mom's brother lives there, and I did not know that they had got snow there. That's pretty cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so are you ready to help men plug in and recharge?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So I want to just jump right into the topic today, turning adversity to your advantage. And reading your book, Dig Deep, you share a story about your first year with Oklahoma's Corporation Commission in 1991 and how your resolve was tested and how that temporary trial influenced the rest of your political career. In highlighting that time of your life, Mr. Watts, what are some of the lessons you've learned about turning adversity into an advantage? Well,
Jeff, I've learned in every trial there's revelation, and we often say that trials tell us who we are. I have a different perspective on that. I don't think trials tell us who we are. I think they tell us who we are not, so we can become who we need to be. We can become, and if we see them from a biblical perspective, we see those trials as ways that God is touching or influencing or tweaking our lives to help us become what He wants us to become. And I went through some difficulties when I first entered politics. I was probably a little bit naive as I look back on it, and I thought that everybody was good and wanted to do what was best and for the state and so forth. And the agency that I was elected into, there was an investigation going on during the time I was elected, and somehow or another I ended up being, because I was the former quarterback from the University of Oklahoma, I think the news and one of my colleagues, I think, used that to really drive both their numbers, the news media's numbers and this guy that was running for Congress to drive his numbers. And so I went through some difficult times, and the Lord blessed and looked over my integrity and protected my reputation, and got elected to Congress and got reelected to Congress. But Jeff, during that trial, again, I think it taught me a lot about what I was not. It told me what I was not more than it told me what I was, and there were some life lessons that I learned over a period of time, and one of them was how to deal with forgiveness, because I was pretty, had gotten pretty angry. I don't want to say I was bitter. Anger becomes, anger leads to one thing, and then before you know it, it's bitterness, and then the bitterness turns into hatred. And Reverend King said, no man should drive you to the point of hatred. But I was angry about it, and the Lord started to deal with me about just the attitude that I had about this gentleman. The Lord started to deal with me about going and begging his forgiveness. And of course I was arguing with God and saying, hey God, I did nothing to him. It was all about him trying to ruin my reputation and trying to ruin my career. And so I finally was obedient, and I went to the gentleman about a year and a half after I left the agency. And Jeff, I asked him, I said, when I left this agency, I said, my heart about you was not right. It wasn't a Christian spirit that I had toward you. And I said, I ask your forgiveness and beg your forgiveness. And 3 weeks later, he was right back up to his old tricks. But what I learned in that experience is that I thought me forgiving him would make him right. But at the end of the day, forgiving him didn't make him right. It made me free. And unforgiveness is a heavy burden that many people carry in their spirit on a daily basis, and some people even allow people from their graves to control their lives simply because they've not forgiven that person that's in the grave for something that they said when they were living, something they didn't say, something they did, or something they didn't do. And so it taught me a lot about forgiveness. And over the last couple of years, as I've preached and as I've spoken around the country, I've talked quite a lot about forgiveness. And so again, in every difficulty we go through, in every trial we go through, there's revelations. And again, for the third time, trials don't tell us who we are. They tell us who we are not, so we can become who God wants us to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, that right there, that statement is so big. I've never heard that before. And forgiveness, I mean, just adding into that, forgiveness is a tough thing sometimes, especially when you're wronged, and wronged severely, like that situation. Obviously, those were all false allegations, and none of that was true. It was just stuff that happened before you were even elected into office. But the way that you handled it, to me, was incredible. So was there a particular verse or a passage that when you reflect back on it that really got you through that time of your life?
Well, I think it's just, you hear ministers, pastors talk about having the word in you, getting the word in you on a daily basis. And I think, I think when you've got the word in you, it does give you an immunity. And Scripture teaches us not to go on how we feel, but go on what the truth is. And so we all kind of like to drink, and I mentioned this in my book, Dig Deep. We all like to drink from the cup of victimhood. we all are guilty of it. We all have done it. And the reason that we do it is because Jeff, it tastes good.
Mm.
And so, I was going on emotions as opposed to going on truth. And there's many scriptures, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 that got me through those difficulties. And Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Lean not to thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths." And Hebrews 12:1. It reminds us that we have witnesses surrounding us, and are we setting the right tone for our faith? And Romans 12:2 that talks about our mindset. And so we get ourselves in a certain frame of mind that says, I'm not going to forgive him. I'm not going to forgive her. I mean, you don't realize what they said to me or how that hurt me and so forth, not recognizing that, unforgiveness, Jeff, is like me drinking poison, but expecting it to kill you.
That's a good point.
That's literally, it imprisons the person who's not dealing with it in their heart. It puts the person in prison, and it allows other people to control our lives when we don't forgive. And let me remind folks, Jeff, that I'm not saying to them that it's going to be easier or that it's going to happen overnight, because it doesn't. It took me, even after I had forgiven him, there were times that Satan would, remind me of it and call it back to my remembrance. But, I think forgiveness is a conscious decision of the will to let it go. And if we don't go and put it on the altar and say, Lord, I surrender this to you, what happens is Satan will continue to bring it up. But, when you put it at the foot of the cross and you leave it there, it still, I still can't say that it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you, when we are seeking to be obedient to God, we'll get there.
Brother Watts, I love this sermon today. I'm really digging it. I really do. I mean, look, on that story there, and we're going to move on here a second, and you mentioned this in your book, Dig Deep. I mean, this is like the story of Joseph being sold into slavery, and how that bad thing, God turned it into good. I mean, we could go on.
No question.
Yeah, and we could go. Go ahead.
No, that's a great example. I mean, gosh, if anybody could have been angry, it would have been Joseph. I mean, if just knowing the story of Joseph and how God, I mean, the guy was thrown in a pit. He was sold into slavery. He was in prison, falsely accused, and the guy ended up being, a very influential person.
Right.
And so, I mean, Joseph, and think about this, Jeff. It wasn't his enemies that threw him in the pit and sold him into slavery. It was his family.
I know. I know. And I know that just trips me out. And then add to that, he didn't get bitter. He forgave them.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And we can go on with other stories. And I think about the Apostle Paul and how when we receive Christ, how he radically transforms people. But we have to let him do that on an ongoing basis. I mean, think about Paul. He was a killer of Christians, and he has this encounter with Christ. He became probably the biggest winner of souls. That's amazing to me. All right, here are the details on how you can win those 4 tickets to MercyMe's premiere movie event, March 16th. All you have to do is join the Men Unplugged email list by clicking any button on our website that says Stay Informed. Secondly, subscribe, rate, and review the show on the iTunes podcast page, or if you have an Android device, you can do so on Google Play Music or on Stitcher Radio. And the deadline to do this by is March 12th. And if you live outside of the Texas area and you actually win the contest, I'll send you a $50 Amazon e-gift card. Okay, before we get back to the show, I want to tell you about a few resources that we have. We have a partnership with Covenant Eyes, the ultimate shield against internet pornography for you and your family. And when you use promo code Men Unplugged, you're going to get your first month free. The second resource I want to highlight is the PDF digital version of the Strand Study Bible. You can only get it here at menunplugged.net. I've actually used this since 2009, and I can just tell you, there's so much stuff in here. To find out more about these and the other resources that we have, check those out on our website at menunplugged.net. Now let's get back to the show. You mentioned 5 key attributes in your book, and we've already been talking about one. Reject bitterness and self-pity. You got trust in God's goodness, maintain a heart of gratitude, cultivate a spirit of determination, and I like this one, laugh. That's very simple. Which one would you say is the toughest for guys to practice, and why?
Well, Jeff, I think of the 5, I think they work hand in hand. And I think if we allow those things to a lack of laughter, unforgiveness, bitterness, drinking from the cup of victimhood, if we allow those things to control us, one impacts the other. And at the end of the day, we become very dysfunctional people. And I think, Jeff, I think we all are dysfunctional. I think we all are dysfunctional. It's just a matter of degree.
Right.
And think about it. I'm probably more dysfunctional than you. You're probably more dysfunctional than somebody else, and so forth and so on. But it's
no,
just
I would say I'm more
degree.
dysfunctional than you. I'm more dysfunctional than you.
And ironically, Jeff, we're born like that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're born into the world. We come out of our mother's womb bent the wrong way, and that's why in the faith community we talk about being born again because of our dysfunctions. And you know, I've got kids, and anybody that's got kids, they can understand what I'm saying here. If anybody listened to this, if they have kids, I would challenge them to think about this. We never have to teach our kids how to be bad. Kids come out of their mother's womb being dysfunctional, knowing how to be bad, and at 6-7 months of age, or I've got a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and I will ask her for some of her French fries, and she says no. And if she asks me for some of my French fries and I say no, it hurts her feelings.
Right.
And so,
right.
But that's kind of how we are. We're all dysfunctional, and you think my 2.5-year-old granddaughter, I've seen her do things that I know her parents didn't teach her how to do that, how to be selfish, how to cry when you don't get what you want. And so I said all that to say it's not a tragedy for us to be dysfunctional. It's a tragedy when we allow our dysfunctions to become our normal. And I think we can do things the wrong way so long that we eventually just think that it's okay. It's okay not to forgive. Hey, God will understand if I don't forgive. God understands your pain and the challenges you've gone through, but He still wants you to forgive. He doesn't want that forgiveness, that unforgiveness to turn into anger, and that anger to turn into bitterness, and then that bitterness turns into hatred. And Jeff, just look at what's going on in current affairs in America today. From Michigan State, what happened with Dr. Lasser and Baylor University and Congress and Harvey Weinstein and Matt Lauer, and I've seen nonprofits over the last couple of years just do very dysfunctional things, and you think, in spite of the fact that we're born bent the wrong way, how does it get to the point that people can brush things under the rug, authorities and those decision makers, policy makers, brush things under the rug or kick things under the rug, and when they're exposed, we kind of scratch our head and say, how did it ever get to that?
Right.
It's because of our dysfunction, to where we can be dysfunctional for so long that we just think it's okay, or we think it's normal. And so, but again, God wants us, and to when I wrote the book Dig Deep, it wasn't a political book by any means. I think it speaks to some of the issues, the political issues that we're dealing with today, but it really was a book about trying to do life better. And in order to do life better, there's just going to be times that we're going to have to recognize that we are flawed and we're dysfunctional, and our prayer should be, Lord, don't allow my dysfunctions to become my normal. Tweak me and turn me and prune me and get the Johnson grass out of my garden so that I can be, Lord, everything that you want me to be, even in my imperfections.
Well, I tell you what, Men Unplugged listeners, I hope you guys are dialed into this conversation here, because what J.C. Watts is talking about here is so big, and you're really hitting it hard here. I really appreciate this. Okay, as your political career progressed, you went from the ranks of rookie in the Republican Party, right? Not the only rookie, but one of the rookies, to one of the more prominent and leading politicians on the Hill. From chairman of the Republican Conference to a spot on the U.S. House Committees on Armed Services, among several others, you obviously had numerous opportunities to dig deep, to succeed in these positions, as well as on the football field and in business. So my question for you is, where do you think this intestinal fortitude, this resolve came from? Was it mentors, obviously, dialing into what the Lord is teaching you? Where do you think it came from?
Well, Jeff, I think, no question, my faith was the foundation, and I wanted to. I was always conscious of, and it didn't always work the way I wanted it to work, but I was always conscious of allowing my faith to navigate my politics and not allow my politics to navigate my faith.
I like that.
Now, having said that, I mean, there were times that I found myself, peeling the pages of Scripture, looking for a loophole to say, Lord, I know you'll understand if I punch him in the nose on this one. But Jeff, I never found anything in Scripture that would allow me to do what I was feeling like doing and not have it impact my Christian witness. And so I think my faith surely played a role in it, and of course, I think there's many people that has sown into my life over the years from the time I was born, that I think gave me some seasoning and if you will, some experiences to deal with the political arena. I think being a quarterback, I think that taught me a lot about how to deal with the cheer of the crowd. And Jeff, I've been in politics at the highest level, been in athletics at a very high level. I've been on the boards of some fine public companies to watch some great leaders run their companies. I've been in ministry full time, and there's one common thread in every one of those spaces, and it's the cheer of the crowd. That can be so intoxicating. That can, and we see it in politics today like never before, to where the cheer of the crowd it's so intoxicating, and the cheer of the crowd is so seductive that I think it's easy in any one of the things that I've done in my life, from ministry to politics, it's easy to think, man, I'm pretty good. You know,
Right.
it's all about me, and I think we all have to remind ourselves. And again, I've been as guilty as anybody else, but I think we all have to remind ourselves of what we could hear our grandmother saying, and that's this: boy, you might be some of that, but you ain't all of that.
I think I've heard that before from my grandma.
So it is. There's no such thing as a self-made person, and I think we, you know, and I think it helps, Jeff, in my opinion, to recognize that almost every person you meet is going through some challenge, or they've gone through some challenge that you're not aware of. And I think in politics it kind of helps to understand, you know, to have, and sometimes it puzzles me how people can be such narcissists and they can be so self-centered, but you know, I think it helps to try to understand, you know, why Jeff acts the way he acts, or why JC feels the way he feels, or why Sally feels the way she feels, or why Larry or Tommy or Susie or you know, Makisha or whomever it might be, you know, what's happened in their lives that has gotten them to the point that they feel the way they feel, or they do what they do. I think God, that there was always a compassionate side to Christ, but there was a truth side to Christ. And I think when you recognize one without the other is incomplete. Love without truth is incomplete, or truth without love is incomplete. When Christ, the lady, the adulterous woman, when they wanted to stone her, I think that's a great life lesson, because, you know, Christ said to all the Pharisees who wanted to stone her, he said, those without sin cast the first stone. So first of all, he was saying to them, hey, there's issues in your life that you need to be concerned about as well. But then he said to the adulterous woman, and I thought it was interesting that they only wanted to stone the woman, although they caught him in the act. They just wanted to stone the woman. They didn't want to stone the men, and I think that tells you a lot about how Pharisees think. They think that my addictions are never as bad as your addictions.
Right.
But Christ said to her, he said, go. That was the compassionate part. That was the love part, when he said to her, go. And then he said, but sin no more. That was the truth part.
Right.
And so it just like Joseph, is a great life lesson in not getting bitter in the life of Joseph. It's a great life lesson in, you know, the lady that was caught in the adulterer's act, how Christ dealt with that. And so anyway, but again, how did I do it? I've not been perfect at it, but I've been faithful in saying, Lord, help me do life better. I can't be who you want me to be if I don't forgive. I can't be who you want me to be. If you know, Jeff, if I'm not paying some attention to my wellness, to the physical side of me. So Lord, help me to do life better, and Lord, even if I don't like the castor oil, even if I don't like the medicine, Lord, I trust that you're going to mature me in a way that I can see that it's for my good and for His glory.
That's really good. Okay, when you talked about, you know, follow the truth, Jesus says that He is the truth. He's the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through Him. John 14:6. So as believers in Christ, we already have the ultimate truth. And we just have to continue to run to Him every day. And I think that's part of really how to make any adversity into an advantage. Well, that wraps up the first portion of my interview with former U.S. House of Representative J.C. Watts. Tune into episode 7, the conclusion of this interview, as J.C. shares his personal testimony, resources, and life lessons that are going to help you stay plugged in and recharged. Don't forget about our first contest giveaway, an opportunity for you to win those 4 tickets to MercyMe's premiere movie event, March 16th. And hey, all you have to do is subscribe to our weekly email list. And secondly, subscribe, rate, and review the show on the iTunes podcast page. If you have an Android device, you can do the same thing through Google Play Music. Until next time, stay plugged in and recharged.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more to see at menunplugged.net, including key resources and ways to engage with Jeff in his training and speaking forums. While there, don't forget to subscribe and receive a free gift. We look forward to you joining us next time here on the Men Unplugged Show.